you want to understand how to live in harmony, go back and recognize each of the principles in the Hermetic series. It is a guide for us to thrive into the future.
Imagine seeing the world not as it appears, but as it truly is, with every hidden pattern revealed to your mind. Hidden beneath the surface of everyday life are currents, energies, and truths that most people never perceive. The Hermetic teachings of Thoth speak of a secret path, the 7th technique, reserved for those ready to awaken their inner vision. This is not abstract theory or mere speculation. It is a method to refine awareness, dissolve the distortions of ordinary perception, and sense the subtle forces shaping everything around you. Through breath, energy, shadow work, and ancient wisdom, you can begin to pierce the veil and engage directly with the hidden structures of reality. Are you ready to see beyond what you thought possible? Awakening the hidden eye. The human eye perceives only a fraction of reality, yet within every person lies a capacity to see far beyond what seems tangible. Ancient Hermetic teachings, attributed to Thoth, speak of an inner eye, a hidden organ of perception capable of unveiling the unseen layers of existence. This is not a metaphor for imagination, but a literal potential to experience truth beyond the filters of the ordinary mind. Every thought, every sensation, and every observation carries subtle patterns that most of us ignore, blinded by habitual ways of seeing. Awakening this hidden eye begins with the willingness to question the limits of perception and to recognize that reality may be far richer than what the senses report. Consider the parable of the blind men and the elephant. Each man touches a different part of the elephant, describing what he feels as if it were the whole. One insists he understands an elephant because he holds a trunk. Another swears the elephant is like a wall, pressed against its side. In their certainty, each ignores the broader truth, bound by the partial information they have received. This story mirrors our ordinary experience. We navigate life thinking our perception is complete, unaware of vast realms of understanding just beyond our attention. The hidden eye, as described by Thoth, is the means to step beyond partial truths and perceive the greater design that connects all things. Awakening this eye requires more than curiosity. It demands discipline in observation and awareness. The Hermetic texts emphasize the correspondence between the microcosm and the macrocosm. By studying the subtle interactions within our own minds and bodies, we begin to see the same principles at work in the larger world. A flicker of recognition in a pattern of events, a sudden insight into another person's intentions, or the ability to sense unspoken connections all emerge as early signs of this expanded vision. They are glimpses of a reality that exists simultaneously with the one we think we know, accessible only when the mind softens its assumptions. Every perception we take for granted is shaped by expectation and habit. We are trained to categorize, judge, and filter, creating a version of the world that is orderly but incomplete. The hidden eye sees through these filters, not by rejecting the senses, but by refining their use. Just as Thoth instructed in the Hermetic texts, awakening inner vision is a process of learning to perceive both the seen and the unseen, the obvious and the subtle, the external event and its underlying energy. It is a form of attention that recognizes patterns without needing them to conform to preconceived ideas. As awareness grows, ordinary distinctions begin to dissolve. Sounds, movements, and shapes take on layered significance, each carrying a resonance that hints at something deeper. A leaf trembling in the wind may convey more than biological movement. It may reflect cycles of energy, subtle currents connecting one life to another. Patterns emerge not as abstractions, but as living expressions, offering a language through which the hidden eye communicates. The awakening is gradual, often imperceptible at first, yet each recognition builds a bridge from the familiar into the extraordinary. This process is not purely intellectual. It is experiential, rooted in paying attention with a sense of presence that the mind alone cannot manufacture. Meditation, contemplation, and focused awareness are tools taught in Hermetic philosophy to refine the senses and the mind together. Each act of quiet observation trains the inner eye to see without the distortions of assumption or fear. In time, what once seemed ordinary appears infused with significance, and the line between the observer and the observed begins to blur. Awakening the hidden eye also brings a subtle humility, recognition of how. limited ordinary perception has been encourages openness to new possibilities. The parable of the blind men reminds us that certainty can be an obstacle. The inner eye thrives not in fixed belief but in exploration, in noticing connections that elude the casual glance. This expanded vision does not reject logic or reason, but allows them to coexist with intuitive insight, creating a more complete understanding of reality. As the mind becomes more receptive, the layers of everyday experience reveal themselves as complex and interconnected. Shadows of meaning appear in gestures, coincidences, and emotions. The world, once rigid and separate, begins to display an underlying coherence. This awakening is the first step on a journey that will examine how the mind itself shapes what we perceive, exposing illusions and guiding the seeker towards seeing reality as it truly is. The veil of ordinary perception. Even as the hidden eye begins to open, most of what we see remains clouded by layers of habit, expectation, and belief. The world appears solid, predictable, and familiar, but these impressions are shaped more by the mind than by reality itself. The Hermetic understanding of perception shows that the universe responds to our awareness, yet ordinary consciousness filters experience through mental patterns, like a lens covered in dust. What we accept as reality is often a reconstruction, formed by memory, culture, and unexamined assumptions. Our senses interpret signals that are already influenced by expectation, giving form to a world that aligns with prior beliefs. The mind fills in gaps with familiar narratives, often mistaking them for objective truth. Even the act of attention itself is guided by what the mind deems important, leaving countless details unseen. Eastern philosophy describes this obscured view as Maya, the illusion that convinces us of permanence and separation. Maya does not claim the world is false, but that clarity is hidden beneath habitual thought. A tree swaying in the wind or a familiar face in a crowded street may carry realities unnoticed by ordinary perception. Our interpretations are filtered through desires, fears, and past experiences, creating a version of life that feels coherent yet is incomplete. Recognizing Maya allows the inner eye to notice what is masked and to begin distinguishing the true patterns beneath appearances. This distortion operates quietly, often unnoticed. A fleeting emotion can color an entire scene. An expectation can shape how another person's action is interpreted, and assumptions about cause and effect can mask the larger pattern. Ordinary perception moves like a river confined to one channel, while the hidden currents beneath remain invisible. The inner eye, once awakened, begins to perceive these currents. It notices the gaps, the distortions, and the elements of reality that are overlooked when the mind relies solely on habit. Even subtle biases accumulated over the years guide attention in ways that often feel automatic. Memories and past experiences layer onto current events, creating a narrative that the mind assumes to be objective. Awareness of these invisible influences allows the seeker to begin disentangling conditioned perception from authentic observation. Limits of perception are not only external, the mind itself contributes to the veil. Attention narrows, memory recalls selectively, and judgment applies labels that simplify complexity. Life appears fragmented because the mind prefers stories it can grasp over truths that resist simple categorization. Every interpretation becomes a lens, and every lens reshapes the experience of reality. The challenge is not only to see clearly, but to become conscious of the distortions created by the very organ of perception itself. Even small, everyday moments reveal the pervasiveness of these veils. Conversations are misinterpreted, gestures misread, emotions misidentified. These are not mistakes, but reflections of habitual thinking. As inner vision develops, it begins to recognize the subtle ways the mind reshapes experience. The hidden eye does not remove the veil instantly. It illuminates its presence, offering glimpses of the currents beneath the surface. Awareness allows us to distinguish between the map the mind constructs and the terrain of reality itself. Awareness of this mental fog awakens curiosity. If ordinary perception is an illusion, what lies beyond it? What patterns, messages, or connections remain hidden while the mind clings to assumptions? Hermetic philosophy emphasizes correspondence. The microcosm within reflects the macrocosm without. Noticing distortions in perception becomes a mirror, revealing the potential for clarity. Recognition of Maya is not disillusionment, but the beginning of insight, preparing the seeker for the practices that refine perception. This stage can feel subtle and disorienting. The inner eye detects discrepancies between expectation and reality, between habitual thought and immediate experience. Ordinary life begins to reveal layers, some vivid, others obscured. Each observation becomes an exercise in distinguishing conditioned perception from authentic reality. The veil is seen without judgment, laying the groundwork for deeper techniques that dissolve habitual distortions and sharpen awareness. As recognition of the veil grows, life is experienced with greater nuance. The hidden eye glimpses patterns behind appearances, subtle connections that ordinary consciousness misses. The world starts to appear as a web of interactions rather than isolated events. This heightened perception naturally prepares the seeker for practical methods, breath, attention, and energy awareness that will clear mental fog and reveal the deeper structure of reality. Breathing life into awareness. Once the mind's habitual distortions are noticed, the question arises, how can perception be refined so the hidden eye can see more clearly? Awareness is not only mental, it is embodied. Every sensation, every pulse of energy within the body carries information that is often overlooked. Ancient yogic teachings describe prana, the vital life force that flows through all living beings. Breath is its vehicle. By observing and directing the flow of prana, awareness begins to expand beyond the confines of habitual thinking, opening gateways to subtler layers of perception. Similarly, African ancestral traditions speak of ash, the vital force that animates all living things. This energy permeates the body and connects individuals to the land and to the unseen forces of existence. Recognizing and harmonizing with this force is not mystical speculation but a practical refinement of awareness. By sensing the currents of energy within and around oneself, the practitioner begins to perceive connections that ordinary observation misses. What feels invisible at first gradually becomes perceptible, like a faint ripple in water that grows into a visible current. Breathing, when combined with conscious attention, becomes a tool for awakening. The rhythm of inhalation and exhalation is more than physiological, it mirrors the ebb and flow of energy throughout the body. A deliberate breath draws attention inward, focusing the mind on the subtle sensations that usually go unnoticed. This practice calms the habitual chatter of thought, allowing the hidden eye to register impressions that are otherwise filtered out. In this stillness, perception becomes finer, more sensitive, and capable of distinguishing nuance from noise. The connection between breath and energy also reveals how deeply thought and emotion are intertwined with perception. Tension, stress, or unresolved emotion can obscure subtle awareness, acting like a veil similar to Maya. As attention settles into the flow of prana or ash, blockages are felt as resistance or heaviness. The inner observer learns to recognize these interruptions and release them through mindful breathing, restoring clarity. Each session of conscious breath brings not only calm, but a subtle calibration of perception, aligning mind and body in harmony with the currents of life. Over time, even ordinary moments become imbued with awareness. Walking, listening, or touching can awaken subtle impressions previously ignored. A gentle breeze on the skin is more than a physical sensation. It is a message from the surrounding environment, a pulse of life that carries patterns. The inner eye, trained through breath and energy observation, begins to perceive the rhythms connecting oneself with everything else. What was once fragmentary becomes integrated. Ordinary experiences reveal hidden depth when attention is attuned to the flow of energy, teaching the practitioner that perception is as much about receptivity as observation. The body becomes a subtle instrument, registering currents and shifts in energy that the mind alone cannot detect. Each conscious breath strengthens this sensitivity, refining awareness and preparing the hidden eye for deeper perception. Practices like pranayama in yoga or energy attunement in African traditions illustrate that perception is cultivated, not granted. The hidden eye cannot see fully without the body's cooperation. Awareness of subtle forces grounds perception in the present moment and strengthens the ability to notice patterns beyond immediate appearances. With practice, perception becomes a dialogue between the inner self and the external world, revealing a network of connections that ordinary consciousness misses. The mind's habitual distortions lose their dominance, replaced by sensitivity to both internal and external currents. This cultivation also fosters a sense of continuity between self and surroundings. Breath and energy practices highlight the interdependence of all things. The pulse of life within the practitioner resonates with the pulse outside. By tracking this flow, one gains a practical method for perceiving the hidden structures that underlie reality. Awareness deepens, expanding the inner field of vision while preserving focus and clarity. As sensitivity grows, subtle signs, rhythms, and connections begin to appear spontaneously. The practitioner notices patterns of energy and intention, both in themselves and in the wider environment. This stage does not reveal all truths at once, but it prepares the mind to encounter the next layer of reality, where patterns, symbols, and correspondences emerge. Breath, energy, and conscious attention become the instruments that unlock perception, making visible the currents that were previously invisible and guiding the seeker toward understanding the hidden order that connects all life. Reading the patterns of reality. With the body and mind aligned through breath and awareness, perception begins to expand, revealing structures that were previously invisible. Every event, gesture, and encounter contains patterns, subtle threads that connect moments and lives. The Hermetic principle of correspondence teaches that the microcosm mirrors the macrocosm. The patterns observed within oneself reflect broader truths in the world, and vice versa. By noticing these reflections, the practitioner begins to understand that reality is not random, but composed of recurring forms and energies. Even seemingly chaotic events carry an underlying order. Consider the parable of a storm scattering leaves across a courtyard. To the casual observer, the leaves appear jumbled and meaningless, yet a closer look reveals patterns dictated by wind, weight, and the surrounding structures. Life operates in the same way. Events that initially feel disconnected often belong to a larger design, interwoven with forces and intentions that ordinary perception fails to recognize. The hidden eye begins to perceive these currents, seeing how the smallest movement echoes across broader realities. Patterns manifest not only externally but internally. Emotions, thoughts, and impulses repeat in recognizable ways, revealing the architecture of the mind and its influence on experience. The practitioner who has cultivated awareness through breath and energy begins to detect these repetitions, understanding that what appears as coincidence is often correspondence between inner and outer worlds. Insight arises not through intellectual analysis alone, but through direct perception, a felt understanding of how events, feelings, and thoughts mirror one another across layers of existence. Symbols and signs become visible through this lens. A gesture, a word, or even a momentary pause can carry significance beyond the immediate. The world communicates in patterns that blend physical, emotional, and energetic signals. Each recognition is a confirmation that reality possesses a language that can be read when attention is finely tuned. The hidden eye discerns the rhythm behind surface appearances, recognizing echoes, repetitions, and harmonies that ordinary consciousness overlooks. This awareness transforms how the practitioner interacts with the world. Decisions are informed not only by logic or habit, but by sensitivity to emerging patterns. Energy flows, subtle cues, and synchronicities provide guidance, revealing choices that align with the broader order. Even mundane experiences, conversations, work, or walks in nature, become laboratories for observation, where patterns can be noticed, tested, and understood. Over time, the mind learns to see with a layered perspective, integrating immediate perception with recognition of underlying structure. Patterns are also reflected in collective life. Social behaviors, historical events, and cultural movements demonstrate repetitions and cycles that mirror the microcosm. By studying the correlations between internal experiences and external occurrences, the practitioner begins to see how personal choices resonate within larger currents. The Hermetic principle of correspondence is not theoretical. It is practical, guiding attention toward meaningful connections and revealing the unseen forces shaping life. Even when patterns are subtle or obscured, intuition bridges the gaps. Awareness cultivated through breath, energy, and attention allows the practitioner to sense where correspondences exist before they are fully visible. This intuitive perception is strengthened through experience, reinforcing confidence in the ability to read reality beyond surface appearances. In this way, heightened awareness becomes both a skill and a natural state, where perception is attuned to both detail and context simultaneously. Recognition of these patterns is not merely an intellectual exercise, it is experiential and alive. The hidden eye perceives the dynamic flow of forces, observing how interactions ripple across time, space, and consciousness. Life reveals itself as a tapestry, with threads connecting seemingly isolated events. The practitioner who has developed breath, energy awareness, and refined attention begins to notice these connections intuitively, understanding that what appears chaotic often contains a deeper logic waiting to be discerned. This growing ability to read patterns naturally prepares the mind for examining the next layer of experience, the interplay of light and shadow within both personal and collective consciousness. Awareness of repeating forms and underlying order provides the foundation for recognizing how unseen forces shape not only external events, but also the hidden dynamics within ourselves. The practitioner begins to sense that every pattern carries a reflection of internal realities, a hint that inner and outer worlds are intimately connected, and that mastery of perception requires balancing observation with understanding. Dancing with shadow and light. As awareness of patterns deepens, it becomes impossible to ignore the interplay of forces within oneself. The hidden currents observed in the world have reflections inside the mind, manifesting as desires, fears, and impulses that shape perception and action. Jungian shadow psychology teaches that every individual carries a shadow, aspects of the self that are hidden, denied, or disowned. These are not flaws to be eradicated, but vital parts of the psyche that, when acknowledged, provide insight and balance. Recognizing the shadow is an essential step in navigating reality with clarity, for the patterns outside are inseparable from the patterns within. In many African traditions, duality is a guiding principle, emphasizing the balance of opposites, light and dark, activity and stillness, creation and dissolution. These teachings complement the understanding of the shadow, showing that inner dynamics are not simply problems to solve, but energies to harmonize. Just as day cannot exist without night, the mind's shadow and conscious self interweave, forming a whole that is only complete when both aspects are seen and respected. Awareness of this duality strengthens perception, revealing subtleties in both external events and internal experiences that ordinary consciousness overlooks. The shadow often appears in daily life as resistance, projections, or unacknowledged emotion. Anger, envy, or fear may emerge in response to others or situations, seemingly external but rooted within. When these responses are recognized without judgment, they become teachers. The hidden eye begins to discern the origin of reactions, seeing the way energy flows and shifts according to the interplay of light and dark. This recognition is not merely intellectual, it is visceral. Subtle sensations in the body, fleeting thoughts, and emotional fluctuations all signal the presence of shadow dynamics waiting to be understood. By observing the shadow alongside conscious intent, the practitioner learns to move fluidly between inner forces, much like navigating a river with currents flowing in opposing directions. Once disruptive energy can be redirected, transforming tension into insight, fear into vigilance, and impulse into deliberate action. In this process, light and dark are no longer in conflict but in dialogue, each amplifying awareness when acknowledged fully. The balance emerges gradually, through careful observation and continuous reflection, as the hidden eye tunes itself to both subtlety and pattern. External events also mirror this internal duality. Patterns in social interactions, cultural behaviors, and natural phenomena often express opposites simultaneously: growth and decay, order and chaos, creation and destruction. When perception is sharpened through awareness of internal shadow, these dynamics become more intelligible. The practitioner begins to notice how personal and collective energies intertwine, recognizing that mastery of self enhances the ability to navigate complex realities. Patterns observed in the world gain depth when understood as reflections of inner balance, revealing that harmony is not static but dynamic. The shadow also carries untapped potential. Suppressed creativity, hidden resilience, and intuitive knowing often reside in the very aspects we resist acknowledging. African duality beliefs emphasize that power often emerges from embracing the full spectrum of existence, not by ignoring darkness. By facing inner resistance and integrating it with conscious awareness, the practitioner accesses capabilities that were invisible under habitual perception. Energy flows more freely, attention sharpens, and subtle correspondences between inner and outer reality become clearer. Dreams, fleeting thoughts, and sudden insights frequently provide glimpses into the shadow's influence. When these are noticed, they guide perception toward hidden connections in both personal life and the larger world. The hidden eye, now attuned to duality, begins to detect correspondences that were previously obscured, observing how light and dark interplay in shaping circumstances, relationships, and even patterns of thought. Mastery of perception, therefore, is inseparable from mastery of inner dynamics. Each informs the other, creating a continuous dialogue that refines understanding. Through conscious engagement with both shadow and light, the practitioner develops a rhythm of perception that is resilient, flexible, and sensitive. Ordinary life becomes a practice ground for recognizing contrasts, harmonizing energies, and observing consequences. This ongoing process cultivates discernment, teaching that clarity arises not from eliminating darkness, but from acknowledging it, moving fluidly with its currents, and aligning insight with intention. In this way, perception becomes alive, responsive, and capable of seeing the subtle connections that shape both self and world. By embracing the shadow alongside conscious light, the seeker lays the foundation for mastery over personal energy, attention, and insight. This prepares the practitioner to navigate reality with precision and awareness, setting the stage for the next stage of the journey, where inner mastery enhances the ability to engage with deeper truths and hidden layers of existence. Unlocking the 7th threshold. With an awareness refined through breath, energy, and shadow work, the practitioner stands at the edge of a threshold few dare to approach. The patterns of reality, both internal and external, have become visible, and the interplay of light and dark has been explored with attention and care. Yet beyond this lies a technique described in the Hermetic alchemical texts, a method known as the 7th threshold. It is considered forbidden not because it is harmful, but because it demands full readiness, a complete alignment of mind, body, and awareness to perceive truth directly. The texts speak of transformation as an alchemical process, a shift of consciousness that mirrors the transmutation of base metal into gold. The practitioner becomes both observer and catalyst, refining perception to the point where ordinary reality dissolves into its underlying currents. The hidden eye, now fully attuned, begins to perceive layers that remain invisible to those unprepared. Breathing, energy, attention, and integration of shadow converge in this moment, opening a passage where perception itself becomes a tool for transformation. Entering the 7th threshold is not an act of force, but of surrender. The practitioner must allow awareness to penetrate fully, noticing patterns, energies, and impulses without resistance. In the Hermetic texts, this state is described as a union of opposites, a synthesis of internal dualities that clears the mind of habitual distortions. Shadow and light, inner and outer, self and environment, all are recognized as part of a coherent whole. By embracing this synthesis, the practitioner gains access to the subtle structures of reality that ordinary senses cannot reach. This stage is experiential rather than intellectual. Sight, sound, and sensation become gateways to understanding. The currents of prana and ash are felt in more refined ways, each subtle shift registering like a language of energy. Ordinary distinctions blur as awareness expands, revealing correspondences across multiple dimensions of perception. Symbols, signs, and synchronicities emerge spontaneously, each carrying layers of meaning that must be felt, not merely analyzed. The practitioner begins to perceive the hidden architecture of existence in real time. Hermetic alchemical texts emphasize that the 7th threshold is both delicate and potent. Misalignment of attention, ego, or intention can obscure its insights. The practitioner's readiness is measured by the ability to remain present, to observe without attachment, and to engage with the flow of life without interference. The process requires patience, discipline, and humility, as well as a willingness to experience truths that challenge ordinary assumptions. Transformation occurs gradually, yet the moment of threshold crossing can bring a sudden clarity, revealing the interwoven nature of self and cosmos. Within this threshold, the mind encounters what the texts call living correspondences. Every element of perception resonates with a counterpart elsewhere. Gestures, thoughts, events, and sensations echo across the web of reality. The practitioner perceives the choreography of existence, a dynamic interplay of forces that reflect and inform one another. Each observation builds a map of hidden currents, offering guidance and insight that extend far beyond ordinary understanding. Awareness becomes a medium for navigating complexity with both precision and intuition. The experience also deepens the relationship with inner vision. The hidden eye, trained through prior chapters of breath, energy, and shadow integration, now functions as a lens into dimensions previously inaccessible. Once subtle patterns become vivid, connections once obscure are illuminated. This vision is not static but interactive. The practitioner learns to read, interpret, and respond to the signals of the hidden currents, cultivating a continuous dialogue with reality itself. Crossing the seventh threshold prepares the practitioner for encounters that transcend conventional perception. Visions, intuitions, and insights arise spontaneously, guided by the alignment of mind, body, and energy. These experiences reveal the interplay of forces that shape personal and collective reality, offering both revelation and instruction. The texts caution that mastery is ongoing. The threshold is not a final destination, but a gateway to deeper engagement with the living, dynamic patterns of existence. By reaching this stage, the practitioner achieves a form of inner alchemy, transforming perception itself into a tool for navigating and understanding reality. The process links every previous stage, refined awareness, recognition of patterns, shadow integration, into a cohesive practice that reveals the unseen. From here, the journey naturally flows into the next stage, where the visions and insights experienced at the threshold can be interpreted, integrated, and applied to life with discernment and wisdom. Seeing beyond the veil. After unlocking the seventh threshold, the practitioner's awareness expands into realms where ordinary perception no longer suffices. Reality appears layered, each moment carrying signals, correspondences, and subtleties that were previously invisible. Egyptian mysticism presents Thoth as the recorder of truth, the guide who observes and preserves the patterns of existence. Following this principle, the practitioner learns to approach life as a living record, noticing the flow of events, thoughts, and energies as they unfold without distortion or attachment. The hidden eye becomes both witness and participant, attuned to subtle signals that convey truth beyond appearances. Insight meditation, or vipassana, offers a practical path for refining this perception. By observing sensations, thoughts, and feelings with non-judgmental attention, the practitioner cultivates the ability to perceive events as they truly are. Breathing and awareness anchor the mind in the present, while observation allows subtle patterns to emerge naturally. This practice mirrors the principle of Thoth, recording reality without distortion, and extends the earlier techniques of energy awareness and shadow integration into daily experience. The veil begins to thin, revealing a landscape of reality that is both intricate and coherent. As perception deepens, ordinary events carry layered significance. A conversation may reveal underlying intentions, a gesture may reflect broader currents of energy, and a seemingly random circumstance may resonate with larger patterns. The practitioner notices the ways internal states shape external perception, and how subtle cues in the environment reflect internal dynamics. Awareness of these correspondences allows the hidden eye to navigate the flow of reality with discernment, seeing connections that ordinary consciousness overlooks. The process also highlights the impermanence and fluidity of all experience. Patterns shift, emotions fluctuate, and energy moves in cycles, reflecting both personal and collective dynamics. Observing without attachment, as emphasized in Vipassana practice, allows the practitioner to perceive these shifts without being swept away by them. Life is seen as a series of interconnected movements, each carrying information that can guide decisions, actions, and deeper understanding. The hidden eye learns to interpret the signals of change, recognizing continuity within flux. Patterns of truth and distortion become visible simultaneously. The practitioner begins to discern how habitual thought, bias, or expectation previously shaped perception, while simultaneously noticing the raw currents of reality beneath. These distortions. Egyptian mysticism portrays Thoth as balancing knowledge and observation, suggesting that wisdom arises from seeing without distortion and recording without interference. In practice, this means holding attention steadily, noticing both the surface and the undercurrents of experience, and allowing insight to arise naturally from observation, rather than forcing interpretation. As attention becomes more precise, the practitioner also perceives the energy of intention in themselves and others. Motivations, unspoken emotions, and subtle impulses carry a pattern that informs the flow of interactions and events. By observing these currents without judgment, the hidden eye gains access to knowledge that is practical as well as mystical. The world begins to feel transparent, not in a literal sense, but as if the structure's underlying appearances are visible to perception. Every encounter, every sensation, and every observation becomes a source of understanding, revealing the hidden threads that bind moments together. This stage also cultivates inner stability. As the veil thins, sensory and psychic impressions increase in subtlety and complexity. Without focused awareness and anchored attention, perception could feel overwhelming. Through meditation and careful observation, the practitioner develops the capacity to witness complexity without losing clarity. The hidden eye functions as both a compass and a lens, navigating the richness of life while maintaining perspective, balance, and insight. Ultimately, seeing beyond the veil integrates prior stages: refined awareness, recognition of patterns, shadow integration, and mastery of the seventh threshold. Reality is not merely observed, it is experienced as a coherent and interconnected field in which the practitioner's attention and energy participate consciously. Through the practices of Thoth-inspired observation and Vipassana-like meditation, the hidden eye becomes an instrument for discerning truth, revealing patterns, and navigating existence with clarity and intention. This perception sets the stage for the final chapter, where the practitioner learns to weave these insights into daily life, embodying the awareness of hidden structures while engaging with the world practically and meaningfully. The veil remains dynamic, but the practitioner now moves through life with an expanded vision, able to see the interplay of forces and the subtle guidance offered by the currents of reality. Living in true reality. As one becomes more attuned to subtle currents, life unfolds as a canvas meant for observing and participating. The hidden eye no longer perceives merely patterns or shadows, it senses the underlying rhythm of existence, the pulse that guides the flow of events, relationships, and decisions. Mystical African teachings describe living in harmony with unseen forces, understanding that energy flows beyond the visible, and that alignment with these currents brings balance, insight, and responsiveness. The practitioner now perceives these forces naturally, integrating observation with intention, seeing the web of life in motion without effort or distraction. Every moment offers an opportunity to act in accord with reality's subtle patterns. A simple gesture, a choice of words, or even the direction of attention can ripple outward, influencing both internal states and external circumstances. Awareness of this dynamic interplay allows the practitioner to navigate complexity with ease, responding to life rather than reacting to it. The lessons of breath, energy, shadow, and the seventh threshold converge here, creating a consciousness that moves fluidly with both the seen and unseen currents, balancing discernment with intuition. The integration of inner vision transforms ordinary perception. Interactions with others reveal subtle signals of intention and emotion, not as puzzles to solve, but as invitations to respond with clarity and empathy. The practitioner observes these flows without judgment, recognizing the interconnectedness of all participants and the larger rhythms guiding experience. In this way, each relationship, conversation, or decision becomes an ongoing practice, a laboratory for testing awareness and refining understanding. Patterns that once required careful analysis now emerge with ease. The hidden eye sees correspondences in daily life, the echo of an internal state in external events, the reflection of universal principles in small occurrences. Awareness is no longer confined to meditation or quiet observation. It extends naturally into movement, speech, and thought. The practitioner experiences the dynamic interplay of energy, intention, and consequence in real time, learning from the responses of both the self and the world. Shadow and light are fully integrated in this stage. Internal conflicts, fears, and unacknowledged impulses are seen as part of the natural rhythm rather than obstacles. African duality teachings remind the practitioner that balance emerges through acknowledgement, not suppression. Energy that once caused tension now flows as insight, guiding perception, decision-making, and action. Life becomes a dance, an ongoing negotiation with the visible and invisible, where alignment with unseen currents amplifies clarity and resilience. The practice of attentive observation, grounded in breath and energy awareness, continues to refine perception. Every experience carries lessons when approached with openness and curiosity. The practitioner notices synchronicities, correspondences, and subtle feedback loops that ordinary perception overlooks, understanding that each moment is layered with significance. These insights are not abstract. They influence practical life, from how one communicates to how one engages with challenges, opportunities, and the natural environment. Living in true reality requires fluidity as much as attention. The hidden eye detects change, impermanence, and nuance, allowing adaptation without reactivity. Mystical African teachings emphasize that harmony with unseen forces is not control, but resonance. By aligning with these currents, the practitioner moves through life with an ease that arises from knowing how to respond to the subtle guidance present in every situation. Patterns of connection, energy, and influence become instruments for both insight and action. Even mundane moments carry lessons when observed with this integrated awareness. The sound of a bird, the rhythm of walking, or a fleeting thought becomes part of a dialogue between self and world. Awareness is active yet effortless, guided by attention and intuition together. The practitioner moves as if dancing with reality itself, noticing its hidden structures, participating in its flow, and continuously refining perception. Through this stage, the journey of inner vision comes full circle. Breath, energy, shadow, pattern recognition, and threshold mastery converge into an ongoing practice that blends insight with life. The hidden eye is awake, not as a tool for escaping reality, but as a means to engage with it fully. The practitioner experiences a continuous dialogue with the currents that shape existence, noticing what is often overlooked, responding to subtleties, and discovering clarity in the dynamic interplay of forces. Life becomes a living laboratory for the hidden eye, where lessons, energy, and insight converge seamlessly. The practitioner moves through existence with awareness as both observer and participant, cultivating a perception that is alive, responsive, and harmonized with unseen currents. In this state, the rhythms of inner vision and outer reality meet, offering continuous guidance, subtle revelation, and the ability to navigate the complexity of life with clarity and resonance. Thank you for watching. If this video resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to stay updated, and share your thoughts in the comments below.